of that. The old schoolhouse, if you've
We're live.
that Olivia Lane, it's fantastic.
Sorry to
Oh, no.
interrupt there. But just wanted to be sure that they knew.
Fantastic.
So welcome, Commissioner. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
And we're gonna take a look. Well, we're here to have you weigh in on the proposed amendment to S3 23 on the CAFO stakeholder group. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Again, for the record, Misty Cincigali, Commissioner, Department of Environmental Conservation. Thank you for having me in. I did provide some written testimony last week that I think you have all seen and read. And so I wanted to, I appreciate the invite coming in to kind of speak to a few more points on the amendments that were offered. Hopefully also that I'm going to put the plug in that you've had a chance to read the CAFO report. We're going to look to come in hopefully in the next couple of weeks and kind of give you a rundown of the report and answer any questions on that going forward.
Yeah, that'd be
fantastic. So a little time, a lot of effort by all parties involved for that report. So I'm really thank you to the farmers and to the staff and everybody that has been involved in that. So to discuss the two amendments as proposed, the first one that I would like to touch on would be the third party contractor. I think one of the main points that I want to hit is that we are currently and have been doing inspections, and that we are out in the field doing those inspections. We, as well as Ag, have been out doing inspections for a long time. With this CAFO program that we have, and also our charge from EPA, last year we did 10 inspections. This year, I think we have EPA is coming into town next week and conducting their own inspections with our staff and Ag staff joining them. I think there are 4 inspections scheduled that they will do. And then we have been working to schedule another at least 10 inspections. And under our charge with EPA and what we agreed upon, we are set to do at least 10 inspections a year. So I want to be clear that we're not starting from scratch, right? So we have been doing inspections. We will continue to do inspections. I'm looking at the third-party contract language. It's important to note that we're not paused and waiting, that we're still doing what we need to do to meet our regulatory charge with Act 67, as well as what we are required to do for EPA under our corrective action plan. And it's important to note that having a third party entity come in to assist with the framework for training, potentially for inspections, undoubtedly would be a good thing. And we stated that during our stakeholder process with folks that having someone in who can look at what we're doing and help us build and continue to build, I would say the plane as we're flying it is a welcome piece. But we right now at this time do not have the additional funds to pay for that. So if there is that charge, we welcome it. We welcome this language as long as there are funds attached to it for us to implement it. I'll speak quickly to the funding that was given to us last year. There were specific pieces or specific items for that money that needed to be accomplished. So the stakeholder group and the hiring of the facilitator for that, as well as the building of kind of IT system for our CAFO program, which we have not yet done. We are in the process, so we do not know what that cost will be, as well as a few additional pieces. And so I really want to say that without the additional money assigned to this, we would not be able to do it. So I know Representative Nelson.
Yeah.
Representative Nelson, yeah.
So you haven't spent all the $850,000 that we gave you last year. And you don't know how much would be left over with that.
Correct.
And you know, I'm gonna say it, the Clean Water Fund's broke. We can't rob a little money out of the Clean Water Fund and wait for the BAA to come back to augment backfill into the Clean Water Fund. I would think that if there was a will, there would be a way. And I'll just say that. The reason why the stakeholders have asked for this third party consultant, contractor, auditor, whatever term we want to come up with, Misty, is so we have consistency and clarity of rules, and that's what the farmers have asked for, and that's what the advocates have asked for, is for clarity of rules so that we all understand what we're coming with. You know, I've likened it to the committee that if I tell Jed I want an egg salad sandwich, and then he tells Jack, and Jack tells Michelle, and it comes around, and then the chair hands me a ham and cheese on rye. So this is what we're looking for, and the training, the continued training to us is very important. That, you know, as technology changes, we've heard in other sectors of agriculture or businesses where technologies change, and DEC has said, well, we don't know about this, or we don't understand this, we're not going to approve this. Technology changes in the agricultural world. I mean, we're drag lining manure now. That's something you didn't hear about 15 years ago, except for a little farmer in St. Albans Town may have started it first, and no one knew about it. And so we want your folks to be fluid, but also in the stakeholders report, and I haven't read the last one, but I read the version before that. There's still confusion about is risk a reason for a CAFO permit? Now, I can tell you that if a farmer has risk, he ought to be thinking if he should ask for a CAFO permit. But should the agency be able to say, you have risk, you need to get a CAFO permit? Well, if you own one cow, that's a risk. One cow is a risk. And then the definition of intermittent, and then what's a discharge? Well, clearly, according to the EPA, a discharge is where pollutants leave the farm, the production area, and reach the waters of Vermont, because we codified it to the waters of Vermont, not waters of the United States. So that's a discharge. And there's been questions about, and I don't think I'm wrong when I bring these points up. So this is why we're looking for this third party person to answer those questions instead of fighting with the farmer about it out in the field, or arguing. I shouldn't say fight, arguing. And that's where we're coming from. And farmers, we want to be able to understand when we go around our farm, we look and we say, ooh, you got to get ahead of that. So anyway, that's where we're coming from. And that's why it's so important to the stakeholders on both sides. This may come as a shock to you, Commissioner. There is not a lot of trust in my world with your agency. Not a lot of, and we need to build that trust. We started building that trust with the advocates, with the petitioners. We're starting to have dialogue, and I'm hoping we can keep fostering that dialogue to build cleaner, more consistent Vermont. It's all we want. We all want that. But there's not a lot of trust with your agency. I don't know if that shocks you when I tell you that. I don't think it does. But and I have enjoyed my time working with you, because I think you bring a different perspective and understanding to it. And I wish we could roll the clock back 4 or 5 years for some of my farm people that are having issues with the agency, because perhaps we could have a clear eye how to fix it without litigation.
So I'll give you, Commissioner, an opportunity to respond if you want. And
Actually, respond
I think maybe there was another question, but I also want to be sure that we're giving you the opportunity to
certainly.
tell us what your perspectives are.
Sure. No, thank you. I mean, as always, we have no problem talking about where we are and how we got here. One of the differing points is that I don't ever like rolling back the clock would be great in a perfect world. But I am of the belief that we are here for a reason, and at this moment in time in these conversations for a reason, and that the stakeholder group was as successful to me as it was in the conversations that were had, because everybody is at a point where we have to have these conversations. And the legislature agreed with Act 67. We need eyes on this, and we need to continue the conversation. And staff at both agencies are working hard to collaborate and to have the conversations and to make sure that as we are moving out into this inspection season, that we are doing it continuing to communicate. And what I would say is that while I agree that a third-party contractor is beneficial for a lot of reasons, the real work and the real proof will be in our actions, right? So while I understand that a third party can be helpful in bringing in another perspective and coordinating and developing framework, the staff are the real people that are going to move forward with the collaboration. And to me, we've done a lot of talking, but the proof will be in our actions. And I do believe that we are working and moving forward with the best of intentions and sincerely taking into consideration what has been discussed at the table at the stakeholder group in the past months, and that giving us an opportunity to put those words into actions will be incredibly helpful, because right now we spent a lot of time talking about things, and I've got an amazing team behind me that is now heads down building that program and working on the program to meet and getting out there to do those inspections and working with the Agency of Ag. And I think that will and should be the main focus, is, to your point, understanding, hearing, continuing to communicate, and saying that our actions will speak louder than words in what we are going to do in the future. Just to kind of as a response to your comment.
Representative O'Brien.
Yeah, Commissioner, just to give us some context, do you have any idea? I mean, right now, DEC has inspectors going to
Yes.
farms. How many inspectors are involved, and what's the sort of budget number that's committed to them and the governor's recommend? I don't know if you know the Agency of Ag side, but
I don't know I can't speak to the Agency of Ag side. I don't know the numbers. I know that we have, my understanding, I believe, is 5 staff members in our CAFO program total. Those are not just for inspectors. Those folks do it all. So as we are talking about moving forward, and we're talking about building our program, our CAFO program, going through rulemaking, they're all a part of that, as well as going out on inspections and doing all of the program work that needs to be done. I'll double check my numbers when I get back to you. But I believe 5 people, including the director or the program manager. And they have, I believe, 11 inspections scheduled so far this year, which to us is manageable right now. It is still a lot, but it is manageable. And then there are the inspections that are going to be done by EPA, and then the Agency of Ag has their own. But I know we are in constant communication with the Agency of Ag to kind of both the understanding of who's going where and when, the communication between the agencies and the farmers to make sure that folks are aware of when we're coming out. But I can get those numbers for you also in terms of what are the numbers for those staff.
and going forward, do you see the streamlining of this process potentially as a place even to save money? Because there won't maybe be the redundancy with both agencies doing these inspections.
Yeah, I mean, streamlining in what sense of, we have our CAFO program right now. I mean, and the report speaks to it. We are moving forward, creating our program. We have our folks who are doing what they're doing, and then the Agency of Ag still has theirs. So I think there are efficiencies to be gained by better communication and collaboration. I will say that collaboration and communication has been there in the past. So it is just improving as time moves on. And so if that's, I don't know that I call it streamlining, but I would say there's efficiencies to be gained in the future. Yeah.
Do you see then the same amount of inspectors with both agencies going forward?
Don't know. That's a great question. I think that we've mapped out and committed to potentially looking at what makes the most sense for Vermonters, what makes the most sense for farmers, for our programs. And I know for us, for Agency of Natural Resources, are committed to building our program, coming into compliance with EPA, and working with the Agency of Ag to continue to be consistent and transparent about how that will look. I can't speak to what the future holds, but we will see. Yeah.
Representative Lipsky.
Yes, thank you. Misty, you talked about you've been doing a lot of inspections, been going out a lot, you have 10 or schedule.
Mhm.
So my question has to do with how frequently, or if any of those inspections are done, have you done jointly with the Agency of Ag, or it's just A&R? Or how frequently are you on the ground together?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I can come back with more details also from our program staff who are working with the Agency of Ag to come together on what inspections they will go out together. I know that in the past, I believe we have, I'm not going to say with 100% certainty, but last year with the 10 inspections that we did, there may have been some collaboration with the Agency of Ag. I know that this year, there is the conversation of going out with the Agency of Ag. Like on the EPA inspections next week, I believe that we will both be accompanying, EPA will be the lead for those inspections. We'll both be accompanying them as well. And I do believe there is the discussion around us accompanying Agency of Ag on certain inspections and vice versa, as well as looking at it as a potential training opportunity for us all to be out there together.
Now, that's what strikes me
Mhm.
is that you have agencies with somewhat different skills and knowledge.
Yep.
And transmit or communicate by email versus be on the ground together.
Agree 100%. Yeah.
They seem to be redundant, but the quality of and the communication is
Correct.
right there.
And we agree. Yes.
Thank you.
Let you speak to other
All right. Yes.
comments you may have.
Certainly. So that was the third party. The working group, I think the only thing that I would say to the working group is we have all along said we really would like to continue. We really feel there is a value in continuing the stakeholder group, having us all together to continue the collaboration and communication. We do feel that we would like to be members, in the language, but we will be there regardless at the table to provide the support that is needed. We see the value in us being at the table, talking openly together to understand concerns that may be there, to talk through as we're building the program, as the program is moving forward, whether it be inspection season or in the wintertime, walking through any questions or concerns that could be had. What is the art of the possible in terms of what we regulatory wise can do versus what would be kind of just a wish. I think we went through some of that in the stakeholder group there were some things that folks would have liked us to do, but we do not potentially have the framework to do it. But having those conversations, all of us at the table, is incredibly important. I understand and hear the the want for the potentially farmers and other groups to be able to have conversations without agencies in the room. I think I hear that. I can understand that. I think there's nothing preventing that. And at the end of the day, we just feel like all of us being at the table in that group together as equal concerned parties or looking to solve problems is an important piece. So other than that, for the working group, I don't believe I need to add any more to my testimony that I've already provided. So
Thank you. Yeah, I'll say that we've been hearing fairly regularly, informally, but sometimes I think during formal testimony too, about the work that's taken place to date. And it's been encouraging as somebody who doesn't have a long history with this subject matter. But knowing that there is a long history between the two agencies and challenges, which I also wanted to say, you were addressed right up front in the report, and I think in a very positive way. I appreciate that. That it's been very encouraging to hear the spirit of collaboration that seems to have emerged just in the past since we were here last year, a year ago. So. Representative Burke.
Thank you, Chair. Even more so, I'm very new to these discussions, but generally speaking, do you feel like has there been what has been the culture in terms of whether is your department or the agency bag try to be kind of more customer oriented, customer focused, and if that's is there a shift toward more of that orientation? Do you find with these collaborations and these conversations, is it because there's always two sides of the regulatory process?
Yes.
You could either use that to make life hard for somebody or try to work with that person to solve the problem. Just wondering if is there a shift toward that, or is that just something that's potentially becoming a real priority for you with all this collaboration and discussion?
Sure, that's a great question. I think not just speaking around this, but kind of more broadly, because my job as commissioner is to look at my entire department. Customer focus is a big part of what we are focusing and continue to focus on for the department. Being part of the conversation, listening, and then saying, how can we get to where we need to go together? And look at potentially having the conversation of compliance versus enforcement, right? So looking at, there are times when enforcement is needed, and we have our regulations in place for a reason. But for us moving forward, we really are looking at the opportunity to say, if we are out on an inspection and see things that need to be worked on or need to be done on a farm, to say, how can we work together to get to where we need to be? There may be situations where that is a permit, a CAFO permit. It may be a situation where you have the ability to, we've identified certain things and you have committed to a timeline and will come into compliance at a certain date. But the really taking a step back and saying we need to be customer focused, and as we have been, I'm not going to say that we haven't been. This process has allowed us to hear kind of more upfront in our face where we are, and hear all of the different folks involved in their perspective of potentially what we could do differently. And we really have, I think, the letter in our report, but also just how, as we talk across our program areas, really taken that to heart and said, we hear it and we understand it, and we're working internally to make sure that we have processes in place that do look at that and looking at the compliance and customer first to ensure that we're working together. Because at the end of the day, our goal is not necessarily to go to enforcement. Our goal is to come into compliance and protect those resources, whether it be the waters or the land that we are charged with protecting. So I look forward to kind of, as we move forward, like I said, our actions speaking louder than our words, and continuing to show folks that we are committed to doing what we always have done, but listening and maybe doing it differently in the future. So
Representative Lipsky.
that's it.
Misty, I've read your whole presentation, and this is a fiscal question. We know that the third-party inspector.
Yep.
There's a gap in funding.
Yeah. Yeah.
Made that clear. But now I'm on the work, your final 3 paragraphs about the working group.
Mhm.
We as a committee have had a second row seat to all of your proceedings with Rep. Nelson on one side and Jared as a also. And it's really been exciting to see all the parties working so well together. And this work and the last set of paragraphs focus on how important to keep this stakeholder group intact and engaged.
Yes.
So, and I think, is there a daily stipend if they attend meetings or have to travel? Was that ever just, is there any dollar amount attached to keeping that coordination group?
Do you want to speak to that?
We, the stakeholders on farmer side aren't doing it for the retirement benefit.
I understand.
They're
that.
doing it for the industry. And they all kind of agreed that the $50 a day is just, I don't even know how many farmers filled out the paperwork to get paid for the I never did.
Yeah, I don't, but
I think most of them just said it's part of doing business and a part of the we care. And I believe it's kind of the same on the other side, but I don't want to speak for the other side, but
Well, it's part of our jobs. So
I think that we always want to be very careful about setting up a group and then not compensating people for their time. Yep.
So that's, but overall, the tone of the board, the progress made is very encouraging.
Just thank you. And just one other quick question. You mentioned that the IT work is still in progress.
yep.
Any sense of the timeline for that?
I don't have the exact timeline. I can come back with it though. I mean, especially when we come back and I can provide that in writing before we come back as well, but I can get you. I know that we have had, what I will say in the last year, especially after 67 was passed, really Abby Paycheck, my program manager, as well as the director, have been full bore ahead, not only working on the stakeholder group and organizing that, but hiring up, getting staffed up, as well as starting to work on the program and rules. So I'm looking forward to, now that the report is done, allowing them to kind of move into field season, inspection season, and kind of start on those other pieces to what I call the bigger puzzle. So I can get that information to you as to where we are and kind of where we expect to be in the next 6 months to a year.
So just for the committee's sake, it's maybe a little confusing, but so we're talking about this amendment, continues the stakeholder group. The stakeholder group, I think, issued some kind of a write-up to the agency. The agency in turn has incorporated that into the report that we asked them to do for us. And not just for our committee, but for probably 4 committees. And we'll have you in and maybe we'll try and find a time where we can meet with the other committees. If it's hard to do this time of year, but we'll appreciate hearing from you anyway.
That'd be fun. We would love the opportunity to walk
For the
through
other
and
committee.
have that conversation.
All right, good. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you all very much for all. Thank you.
Okay, so the committee is amenable and ready to switch gears to an entirely different subject. You can bring our next Zoom guest in, Patricia.
She's here already. Let's check with her whether she can.
Okay, Eugene, yeah. Thank you. Eugenie, can you hear us?
Yes.
All right, so we will return to the subject of this amendment before lunch. I don't know that where we'll be, but uh, so committee, we have invited two strawberry farmers to join us this morning. And we won't be spending too much time with them, but wanted to get a better understanding from folks out in the field on the subject of weed control for strawberries. This may or may not have anything to do with the bill that may be in the Senate at the moment that is not on our wall, or at least in our possession. So with that, Eugenie, thank you for joining us. And if you'd like to introduce yourself, tell us where you live and what you do. And then if you're not sure why we asked you here, we can ask you questions, but we're also happy to have you to sort of launch right in.
Okay, great. My name is Eugenie Doyle. I am the co-owner with my husband and son of Last Resort Farm in Moncton in Addison County. I have been growing strawberries since 1983. Took the small fruits course at UVM with Dr. Bertie Boyce, who was one of the national experts on strawberries. That was his favorite small fruit. At that point, he said, you cannot grow strawberries organically. And so I've set out during my career to prove him wrong, which we've done very successfully. So we've been, we started out conventional because that was my training, and we were conventional dairy farmers, and we transitioned, became certified organic in 1996, I believe. For many reasons, which I can go into at some point if you'd like. I can tell you, I don't know why you've invited me here. I did testify in front of the Senate Ag Committee just to say you can indeed grow strawberries without any herbicide. And at the time that I was learning about herbicides, paraquat was not even really discussed. It wasn't kind of on the list for strawberry growers at that time. I think, is it Gramoxone that you guys are talking about? I think that's the trade name at this point. So it may be that some growers don't even know that they're using paraquat because it's not called paraquat. But I want to make it really clear that I am not interested in telling any other growers how to grow their strawberries. And all I can say is that we've had being certified organic has for us been a part of our economic success. I think it's a big selling point, especially in the pick your own aspect, which is a very large part of our operation. Strawberries are on the dirty dozen of pesticide, all kinds, not just herbicide use. And I think consumers are quite aware of that. That's become a way that they get their information, and they certainly seek out organic strawberries. Any organic grower in the state, and there are a lot now. There were only two of us in the beginning. There are a lot now, but it's a joyful, beautiful crop, and we look at ourselves as food growers. We look at ourselves as part of the healthcare providing team. So our philosophy has always been, like other healthcare providers, to do no harm. So we certainly, given the choice of using something that has a link to cancer or Parkinson's, I guess in this case, we would elect not to, and you can do that. The only other thing I will say is, because I did hear the testimony in the Senate Ag Committee from an apple grower who gave a very convincing reason why it would be difficult for them not to have the use of paraquat. I would hope that any action by the legislature would include some help for growers transitioning to new products or new methods. So yeah, you asked what else do we do? Because we certainly have weeds. Just because you're organic doesn't mean you don't have weeds. And we do a combination of pre-plant soil preparation, cover cropping, a lot of cover cropping, and then cultivation. The equipment for cultivation of strawberries has improved a lot in recent years. And then we also do mulching, both with plastic mulch and with straw mulch. And then we do some hand weeding. But I would bet that even with the use of pesticides, with herbicides, there is still some hand weeding involved. It's just the nature of the weeds. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you very much. We do have a question. Representative Bartholomew.
You just alluded to some improved equipment for, didn't quite catch, what kind of equipment and what does it do?
So different people use different kind. We use finger weeders. Bezzerides is one brand. There are also different basket weeders that can go down the row of a planted strawberry. You plant a bare root strawberry, it looks like sort of nothing. And then the mother plant that you've planted sends out daughter plants. That's what makes it difficult to weed with other row crop weeding, because there are actually several plants. It's not just like a row of carrots. But there are now different, we've figured out ways to use different baskets that will send soil up onto and bury some of the weeds up onto the plant.
Can you tell us just about who your customers are? Do you wholesale or pick your own, or how do you sell your product?
Yeah, we have a diversified marketing plan. We wholesale to healthy living, both healthy living stores, both city markets in Burlington. We do 3 farmers markets. We have a farm stand at our place, and we sell out of state through the Farmers to You cooperative distribution trucking system. And we have a free choice CSA program, a farm share program where people prepay and then can use their credit at any of our markets or in our farm stand. And we also, for strawberries, do pick your own. That's a large part of the strawberry marketing. We don't do other crops, pick your own, but people really love it. It's, I would imagine that in the state, the two areas that bring people onto farms are pick your own strawberries and probably apples as well. Those are the most family friendly, just really, all I can say is that they're really joyous crops. During COVID, it really came out that we were allowed to function with certain, restrictions on distancing, and people were like ecstatic that they could get outside and actually pick something. I think for some people, the pick your own aspect is the only way that they ever get on a farm.
Yeah, I remember doing exactly that in June of 2020. There are a couple other questions. I was just curious to know what your, if you don't mind sharing, what you wholesale strawberries for. Just knowing that you were organic, I think we all understand that there's likely to be more labor involved, generally speaking.
Yeah.
Can you give us a sense of price points?
Our price point. Well, we have, we're pre season, and our price depends on our supply. So we're hoping to get through the late frost season without damage to the blossoms, and I can tell you better in about a month. But our price last year, pick your own, was $4.50 a pound. Yeah, when I started growing strawberries, it was 75 cents a pound. So that's one way that things have gone up. But this year, I suspect we will be raising prices a bit. And then wholesale, we do them by the pint. And I believe we had started out as conventional growers doing them by the quart, and then realized that there was going to be a lot of sticker shock on a quart of strawberries. We sell a quart. We don't sell many quarts actually, but that would be in the $9 range retail. I guess people are going to, have to get used to that, because all of our costs have gone up: fuel, materials. So there will be some increase in price. However, the pick your own is still the best bargain. And I'm not really sure what our wholesale price will be to the city market. We haven't told them yet, so I wouldn't want to commit here.
Don't divulge any trade secrets here. Yes. Okay, we got time for a couple questions. Representative Burke.
Thank you, sir. I was just curious, the scale of your farm acreage and how many employees, if you don't mind sharing?
How many what?
Employees.
How many employees? Okay. Yeah, we have, our farm is about, the whole farm is about 265 acres, but 100 tillable acres, of which about 3/4 of that is hay. We do organic hay and straw for sale. Was a beautiful dairy farm until we really did have to sell the cows. So in vegetable crops and berries, we have about 25 acres, of which 10 to 12 is fruited or grown out each year. So we do a tremendous amount of cover cropping and changing where we grow things, which is a part of our weed control system and pest control system. So in strawberries, we have, my son keeps increasing it, but we have about 2 acres. And some of that is now everbearers, which are, a fruit, smaller amount for a longer period of time. And that is on plastic. So that's a trade-off. Plastics don't, as far as we know, agricultural plastic, which I would invite you to address sometime. And I think it is a real problem for us, the disposal of it. I don't believe the use of it doesn't cause cancer or Parkinson's. However, it is definitely an environmental problem, which we recognize. So there's a trade-off between using herbicides or plastic, and we do use some plastic on our everbearers. Does that answer your?
How many employees do you have?
Oh, employees. Yeah, we have one H2A worker, and then we have right now we have 3 total. That's sort of our. We have 2 that are year round, and we have the one H2A who's here for 6 months. And I think we're having 2 others come later in the year that we're sharing with another farm. And then we have about 10 local employees who are here for the summer. So about 13. Some are part high school kids.
And one more question from Representative Nelson. Did you have?
Yeah, it was the acreage question I wanted to ask it. How many acres do you have in strawberries?
About 2.
About 2, and then the rest is assorted row crops.
Assorted row crops. We also grow raspberries, blueberries, currants, gooseberries, and then a lot of garlic. We're quite well known for our garlic. We have 7 high tunnels, and in which we grow various greens and ginger, turmeric. So we have definitely diversified and have tried to stay ahead of the more traditional crops.
Yeah, and I was gonna make comment that pick your own blueberries are pretty popular too. Besides pick your own strawberry.
They are, yeah, we have not a large amount of those, and there are some much larger operations quite near us. So we mostly pick those ourselves and sell them in our farm stand. They're easier. We're happy to have people come and pick their own strawberries because they are harder to pick. They would take more labor from. It's a win-win situation. You have people coming to pick the hardest crop to pick, and they're having fun.
Yeah. Representative O'Brien.
Yeah, just quickly, bringing the discussion back to paraquat. I just wondered if in your field, since you've been at this a long time, my observation is I go to a supermarket and in the fruit section, what you said earlier about you can't raise organic strawberries. Well, there are always strawberries for sale, and then there are always organic strawberries for sale. Often, say Driscoll's does both, and so I wondered if you ever visited those huge farms or know people who have, and they must have totally different management practices, but they pull off, berries with both of those strategies.
Yes. Okay. So Driscoll is, what can I say? Our enemy, perhaps. Okay. So the thing about Driscoll is they're huge. It's a conglomerate of many, many growers. The Driscoll family maybe started growing strawberries. I don't think they touch the berries anymore, but huge. A lot of them are hydroponic. So a lot of them are grown not in soil and are grown in what might be seen as the wave of the future. We see it as organic growers who strongly, strongly believe that the soil is the key to to environmental health and to human health. So to us, a Driscoll strawberry is really not a strawberry. And the taste, thank goodness they taste really not that great. So we will have people, the proof is in the flavor. All we can say, and the people who come and pick their own, or the people who buy local strawberries in season, they certainly know the difference. It's like the difference between a cardboard tomato and a really delicious heirloom tomato grown in August. So I don't know if that answers your question. They do a lot of plastic culture. I have never visited one of the Driscoll farms. I'm not sure I would be allowed to. I think that the security is quite high.
Representative Lipsky.
Yeah, quickly. Would we be welcome either as a committee or individuals to visit your farm? And if so, if we come from Tyler Bridge Road, where are you located?
I'm sorry, that broke up a little bit. Did you ask
where are you located? Yeah. And might we be welcome to visit your farm either as individuals or committee members?
Absolutely. We'd be delighted to host you. It's 2246 Tyler Bridge Road in Moncton. And it's the northeast corner of Addison County.
I know exactly where you are.
Actually, if you came, we also in our town, we are the strawberry capital of Vermont. I didn't know if you know that. Moncton also has a larger than us strawberry operation, which was the Norris Berry Farm for many, many years. They have, she's transitioned to a young couple who bought the farm. They're known as the non-organic place. We are the organic place. We get along very well. I know that they also do not use paraquat because I had a conversation with them the other day. They grow more acreage than we do. So if you came to Moncton, you could visit both places.
Point of order, the committee member asked a question and gave the answer to.
Well, I only want to describe the geography. How I get.
Ridge Road. Katie, thank you very much for joining us.
You're
We
very,
appreciate it.
very welcome. Thank you.
And we will plan to visit. We'll let you, if we all show up at once, we'll let you know ahead of time.
Yes. So we'll come when the berries are ready. About a
Okay.
Leave them a red face.
Later in May.
All right, we're gonna see now if Charles is available. Yeah. Morning, Charles.
Morning. Thank you, committee.
Yeah. Come on up and thank you for joining us. Thank you for being patient.
It's our first sunny day in 5, so it's.
Yeah.
I don't like this. No, it's fine. I got up early this morning and got everything started. So,
Yeah.
I'll read my testimony first and then we can go after from there. Good morning, Chair and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Charles Gray. I'm a strawberry farmer here in Vermont with 13 years of experience farming small fruit. Before returning to agriculture, I served in the United States Marine Corps, where I earned a degree in petroleum engineering. And in that role and throughout my military service, I received extensive training in the safe handling, risk assessment, and management of hazardous materials. I learned firsthand how to evaluate real-world dangers, follow strict protocols, and use powerful substances responsibly while protecting people and the environment. That background is why I'm here today. I use paraquat, such as gramoxone, as a directed, shielded, contact burn down herbicide in my small fruit fields, mainly for quick weed cleanup in row middles, pre-plant bed preparation or renovation. It works quickly on emerging green tissue without leaving long-lasting soil residues that could harm my plants in Vermont's cool, wet conditions. That helps me retain clean fields or protect young plants when timing is tight. Federal requirements already in place for paraquat. Paraquat is a federally designated restricted use pesticide. Under EPA rules, it can only be mixed, loaded, applied, or handled by a certified applicator. Every certified applicator must complete an EPA-approved paraquat specific training program before using it, and that training must be retaken every 3 years. I keep my training certificate on file and follow all federal and state rules as a licensed applicator. Without paraquat, I would have to switch to other options, such as glyphosate, which is Roundup, glufosinate, diquat, or carfentanilazone, or to a non-chemical method such as cultivation, flaming, hand weeding, or mulching. These alternatives are often slower, more expensive, require more labor or equipment, disturb the soil more, risk damaging my small fruit plants, or on a smaller Vermont farm growing high-value small fruit for direct markets and agritourism, pick your own, that would raise costs, hurt yields or quality, and make it harder to stay in business. One important point on risk and regulations. Even with these strict federal requirements, paraquat faces more oversight than any other dangerous chemicals. A common example is household bleach, which has a high acute toxicity and can cause severe burns and harm from small accidental ingestion or splashes. Anyone can buy or use bleach without a license, permit, or specialized training. And there are many other household or farm substances that's similar to these light regulation. I'm not suggesting we ban bleach. I'm saying we should be consistent and practical. Target rules on actual patterns combined with proper licensing and training makes more sense than a full ban on one tool that trained licensed farmers like myself use responsibly in very limited amounts. The bill already gives apple orchards time-limited permits until 2030, along with required training and reporting. I just respectfully ask the committee to offer similar flexibility for small fruit. At a minimum, please make sure the study on alternatives includes practical, cost-effective help for berry growers, including possible cost share assistance. Vermont already has strong pesticide regulations in place. With my background in hazardous materials management, I take safety very seriously and strictly follow all the rules. Losing access to this tool without a good replacement would hurt my farm without meaningfully reducing overall risk compared to many unregulated hazardous substances we live with every day. Thank you for your time and consideration, and I'm happy to answer any questions about my use of paraquat and my experience with alternatives, my federal training compliance, or how my background in hazardous materials shapes my approach to farm safety.
Thank you. Trust, and just before, so I don't forget to say, if you have it and if you want to submit that testimony.
Right.
Writing, you can post it, for the public to see too. Representative Nelson.
Thank you, Chair. Charlie, I'm a licensed applicator myself. Matter of fact, upgrading my license to commercial 1A. So I can cover some corn ground up in the Northeast Kingdom, so they don't have to send a truck over to do 80 acres from Swan. I didn't realize that they use paraquat on other things than either as a desiccant on agriculture crops, which there's other things they can use, or other than orchard crops. So I thank you for coming in and telling us that there's other uses for it as well. And maybe that was an oversight by us, not realizing.
Yes, sir. It's labeled for at least 10 other different crops.
Yeah, and should have looked at the label. You're right. You're exactly right. First thing we do when we get a herbicide, we look at the label.
That's the federal law.
Federal law and how we use it and where we use it and when we use it. What do you grow? What do you grow on your farm?
We grow about.
Where is your farm?
We're Four Corners Farm. We're in South Newbury, Vermont. We were established in 78 in Heartland, Vermont, and then we moved to South Newbury in 82. We grow about 40 different crops. We're also a dairy, beef, and pork operation. So we do the whole, our sort of, our motto for our farm stand is all we sell is our own. So everything that you can come to our farm stand, and everything outside of maybe coffee and some t-shirts comes from our farm, and we stand behind that because we want people to understand.
You're selling vegetables and stuff as well, or?
Yes,
it's like fruit crop.
Yeah, so we're total, we're about 25 acres tillable. And then we do another 30 acres of hay and straw for the cows and everything. So we're doing about 10 acres of strawberries, and then we do about 10 acres of sweet corn, about 3 to 5 acres of potatoes, lettuce, cucumbers. We have 16 greenhouses, so we're about 5 of them are heated with hothouse tomatoes and cucumbers and peppers and eggplants. And
Your tomatoes ripe yet?
yeah, I had my first cherry yesterday. So cucumbers are close behind. So
Where's South Newbury?
Just below Newbury. Are you the one with Bob?
yeah, Bob Gray's my dad. So I don't really say it took over the farm, or even inherited it. I just kind of manage the farm that we've created and understand what it takes to run a 9-month season and bring local food to our community.
He was a guest in the State House.
Thank you, sir.
And,
He's been a crucial, even at 86, he's been a crucial help for me this season. So.
Other questions? Go ahead.
I just specifically, how, I understand how it's used now in orchards on young nursery stock. Like, where are you using it? In berry management.
So Eugene, if she's on, but on the organic side, they're more of an annual crop. So they plant, they might get that growing year, then they harvest. Where on the conventional side of it, we're more of a perennial crop, where I'm getting, on my plastic culture, I'm getting 3 years, and on my matted row, I'm getting up to 6 years. The record my dad held is 9 years in the same field. And this crop really helps because weeds are your biggest problem in strawberries. And if you disturb the soil, you just bring up new weed seeds. And we've been farming the same ground now for 40 years. So it's like, even with rotation, we're still running into, wet summers where, things didn't work and weeds went to seed and populated the ground. So paraquat is crucial in the fact that it doesn't translocate back to the plant. So where you spray it, it stays, and it doesn't really harm the plant. So it's like where you can put it in and you can spray it, and we use it in a shielded sprayer. So with a surfactant, so it will stay exactly where we put it. It won't go anywhere else, and it won't harm the plant. I understand that it's extremely dangerous. Like I'm not, as I said, as a Marine, I'm not oblivious to that. I understand that. And, but with the new regulations that just came out from the federal government last year, that has new labeling on everything, both in English and Spanish, and that anything below 165 gallon container now has to have a closed loop. So I just purchased a new sprayer that now mixes on demand. So the jug plugs in and you set the rate on a dial and it will mix. It will mix with the water and everything out the nozzle. So that's something I'm looking forward to, that you don't even have to, you don't even have to hand mix it anymore. So I'm using those precautions. And on the label, which is the federal law, it says that if you follow these precautions, all your proper PPE, there's very little risk to the applicator. And then it breaks down with sunlight. So I think it's like 36 hours of sunlight, and then it's not biological anymore, and it doesn't pose any harm.
So how does it, I'm thinking like, here's a strawberry, here's some runners, and here's some pigweed or whatever coming up around it, and you want to target the weeds.
Well, I just sent the video, but I have a video of runners this year, and I'm talking about like on an acre of strawberries of plastic culture. After we've picked all the runners off the first time, it comes back again. There's probably 100,000 runners out there, because we're planting like 20,000 plants in an acre.
So you're targeting runners?
Yeah, just the runners, because I can't. They've tried, and this is as someone who's visited a lot of farms across the United States, this is a problem that all strawberry farms, larger scale strawberry farms, are dealing with, because you just can't afford the labor of going out there and picking off the runners. So, and if you toss the runners into the aisles, then they're just going to root and grow in the aisle, and then you'll have a problem there too.
Okay. So it's not even the weeds, you're going out the runners, just.
Yeah, runners, and then we'll use it as, it depends on the year. Like right now we're planting strawberries today. So we're really good. We made beds yesterday. We got them prepped, we got them whole. We're planting strawberries today. I probably won't have to use paraquat, because I can get my pre-emergence herbicide down before anything starts growing. If we have weather that I can't get in, or there's something like one year, it was just after COVID, the plants were delayed by a month. So we had all the plastic laid, and then that was a year that I had to use paraquat. After we've already entered the field, we've planted the plants and the workers have left the field, then I'll come in and use it. And it will be, on the Everbears, it'll be a month, 2 months before the guys go back in there. And then on the Maduro, the short day varieties, they won't even go back into the field again until the next picking season. So I'll spray for runners, or I'll spray for weeds in September. And we're all done with any handwork in the field. So no guys will go back into the field. And paraquat has a 21-day post harvest interval, and it has a 48-hour reentry. So when it can be sprayed, it's after 48 hours, it is safe to re-enter the field without PPE.
You're using tractors, or sometimes you're using just hand, like the back? We
try to stay away from the backpack, as that's a emergency, but with the shielded sprayer, you can set it, it's called a company called Red Ball. I don't think they exist anymore, but they're probably 1.5 feet wide by 2 feet tall by 2 feet long. And it's got 3 jets in it. It's got curtains around the whole side, and you can pretty much bring it down to an inch off the ground. It even has runners, then it'll put it right there. So
got a bunch of other questions here, and want to just mention to the clock and that we have a witness who's joined us online. A couple of witnesses, we know you're there, and stand by, and if your schedule gets tight, we'll work things out. But I think you were next tonight. Okay, then Representative Boswell.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you mentioned in your sort of description of how you use paraquat that you apply it, it stays where it goes, and then 36 hours later it's gone, or it's soaked in. We actually heard testimony about a study that came out, I think it was in October of last year, very, very large scale study that actually showed that it's not true that it always stays where you put it, that it can actually travel over 2 miles on the day that it's applied.
not with a surfactant.
Well, what we heard is that it can travel. What's the word? Volatilize. It can volatilize.
No, not with a surfactant. It bounds through the organic matter, and it stays right where it is.
Okay. Well,
the only reason that possibly would be for and this is where I stand against paraquat. I'm for paraquat in certain applications,
Yeah.
but they use it for to dry down grains, right? So they'll broadcast spray it over a field of rye, because they need that grain to dry down. faster than, you know, letting it go to, and in that case, if they're broadcast, and they probably don't want it to stick, they just want it to die. So in that small case where if someone is, and this is talking about out in Oklahoma or somewhere in the Midwest, in the plains, where they're doing like, you know, 1,000-acre spray, right? We're talking about, I'm doing 2 feet on an acre. So it's like, I'm probably doing a half an acre per tank load on 1 acre. So a very, very small amount, right? There's always, you can always find data that makes you agree with, you know, there's always data out there to be like.
I mean, actually, we hadn't heard it before that. And then this study apparently was very different. But in any case, that's not my question. So getting to the next part, we heard a lot of testimony about paraquat before we made our decision. And when we voted, it was a unanimous vote to work towards phasing it out. But we didn't hear testimony from berry growers. And so I appreciate that you're here because, like your suggestion, if there's going to be a transition, the Agricultural Innovation Board should be looking at what's going to work for you as well as for apple growers, which we did include in the bill. So I think that's really important. But I guess what my question would be, what would be the transition time that you feel would be reasonable? Because we have, I think, maybe a 4-year window is where the bill is at right now in terms of phasing out to where you.
Why can't we just stay with the federal government's recommendations?
Because paraquat has been outlawed in over 70 countries because it was assessed to be too dangerous.
But those out of those 70 countries, how much of them were first world countries?
A lot. It's the whole European Union.
But do you know that now the whole European Union, they don't even grow in the ground anymore. They're all, majority of them, all high tunnels and tabletop strawberries.
We didn't talk about strawberries.
Because the regulations
the
regulations have been put on farmers for so long that we can't grow them how we used to. So we have to grow them in a new route.
I guess the short answer would be that, I mean, I can't speak for all my colleagues, but in terms of me, and when I made my vote, I heard enough evidence about the dangers of paraquat to the farmers, especially, and the applicators, especially the people that are the closest to it, and also, honestly, I have loved ones who died from Parkinson's, and Parkinson's is increasing at extraordinarily rapid rates. And anything we can do to try and reduce that. I mean, we heard this morning, it's possible to grow strawberries without using any pesticides. So transition is possible. For the apple orchards, it's going to be more challenging. But for strawberries, there are alternatives. And I'm not trying to talk you into becoming organic.
No, I won't. No, it's not.
You know, my question was about the transition time.
So Ms. Doyle, she's running 2 acres, right?
Yeah.
She's probably getting minimal yield. She's only planting in pints. So she's getting minimal yields out of her field. So that is the lack of using fungicides and the lack of using these chemicals on our farm. She's getting very minimal yields, but having to put in just as much energy and just as much time into these plants.
So how long will it take you to transition? If we continue to have a phase out plan as what we pass, how long would you need to transition?
Yeah, like 5 years. Yeah, because I'm not like, I understand, I hear the whispers and, you know, they're coming.
Yeah.
You know, as I said, there's probably only 5 conventional farms in the state. You subtract apples and you do fruit and vegetable farms, there's probably only 5 of us in the state. So
just thank you.
I know you have time.
Well, I want to make sure that everybody has a chance to get a question in. If it can be a question that will help the committee with its thinking, we can save committee discussion. Who was next?
I got it. Pretty. Syngenta's pulling out. They're pulling their license. You're aware of that. Gramoxone will not be available after December 31st of this year. Do you suppose that any of the other, I hear there's like 25 in the nation, 25, 27 different purveyors of paraquat. I'm not familiar with them. Is anyone going to keep up the extra training you need to use paraquat? And do you, and I'm asking just your opinion, the EPA has ordered a drift study to be done. Do you feel any of these other companies will Yeah, it's expensive to do those studies, we know. Do you foresee Paraquat staying on the market for a long period of time, or do you think it's gonna be one of the ones that they claw back?
I think it's gonna be, I wouldn't be surprised if they're working just as fast to create a replacement.
Mhm.
And I think it's gonna be kind of a, we'll see as the conferences say in the next 5 years. I'm sure, just like with all,
All our chemistry
Yeah.
has changed in the last 10 years.
things are getting resistant a lot faster than they used to be. And the chemical companies are working just as fast to replace those. And I'm sure with the more legislative, pressure comes with these chemicals, I'm sure they're going to have to find something new or find an alternative. But it's just, I guess my last thing I would say is just, if the state of Vermont decides to go further on this, I mean, we should also think about that any strawberry coming into our grocery stores that is not in Vermont will most likely have been used paraquat or in the, so just, it's just hurting Vermont, or it's just hurting Vermont farmers is all this bill is doing.
Fair. Thank you.
Because that's my competition is Texas and California and Florida.
Yeah.
Representative Burt?
Thank you, Chair. If Innovation Board is unable to find a viable alternative that's comparable and economically for your farm, what kind of position is that putting you in?
Yeah, just like all we've done for farmers have done for generations. We just adapt and move forward. Switch products or switch practices and move forward. Right? There's too much at stake right now to, we'll see. We'll see how everything goes in the future. But just we'll adapt. It's adapt and overcome. It's kind of have to be. Otherwise, the only thing. Yeah. I thank you guys so much for inviting me over here. I really appreciate it. Sorry, I'm taking more of your time than I needed. And
One more question, yeah, Representative.
Jersey cows.
yes, we're milking 25.
What's your mom's name?
Kim Gray. We're the
Exactly.
when-
Vermont Jersey breed.
When Hartdale goes out, we'll be the last dairy farm in Newbury, Vermont.
Are you related to Molly?
Yes, my sister.
Oh, okay. All right. I didn't know the rest of the family. That's funny.
Really appreciate your coming in, and as somebody mentioned earlier in the testimony that we took earlier in the session, either we didn't hear about berries, or if we did, it somehow went through in one ear and out the other. So thank you.
Yes, thank you guys. Thank you for doing your job so I can do mine. So
Thanks for coming.
Yep.
Great, Steve Doynell, are you still with us?
Yes,
Hi, and
thank you for inviting me to talk.
yeah, are you pressed for time?
Yeah, unfortunately, I have a personal commitment. I really have to leave at noon or I will be in trouble.
Well, oh dear. Okay, well, no, certainly won't keep any longer than that. And Dr. Breyer, thank you also.
Hello, everyone. Pam Breyer. I'm here as backup for Stephen.
So I think asked you or maybe you asked us to come in, and this is not about strawberries or herbicides, but about the amendment that we've been looking at for fluorinated containers. And I know you were a couple of weeks ago and provided some testimony. We have made some changes to the language. I don't know if you had a chance to look at that, but we're happy to hear your thoughts and let you decide who's going to speak.
Yeah, well, I'll start off and Dr. Breyer here has a lot of information on this topic also. So what I understand that you're proposing is to include pesticide containers in the prohibition on the use of fluorinated containers in 2032, effective in 2032. And frankly, we have some concerns about that language and the possible implications of it. and the rationale for doing it. Which, you know, we previously tested, and Pam previously testified to the fact that PFAS materials in pesticides are prohibited by EPA. They're considered a contaminant. And if they're present, then the pesticide registrant has to take action to remove them or prevent them from being in there. So in some sense, and back up a minute, it seems like the whole issue of the fluorinated containers is that they could result in PFAS being present in the pesticide. I think that's the rationale for it. And from what I understand, and you know, we certainly can look into it more, and we probably need to look into it more and get more information about it. It's not automatic that if you use a fluorinated container, you're going to get PFAS in whatever you've got in the container. So to some extent, it's you know, sort of overbroad to just prohibit the use of fluorinated containers without understanding what is actually happening with the materials that are in the containers, and having a broad stroke like that. And then there are issues that follow on from that. One being that, you know, the potential exists, depending on how this thing is implemented, that there will be impacts or unintended consequences on the availability of products in the state in the future. The materials just won't be available. Again, you know, Vermont's a small market. The chances of us, you know, our market size having an impact on practices for companies nationally, you know, seems problematic. And it just seems like this is a bigger issue. It's complicated, and we need more information. And adding it at this time, it just causes us some concern. I don't know, Pam, anything you want to add to that?
I just to reiterate the point that we need to take action if there's PFAS in pesticide fluid. And so the argument here is that this doesn't add anything to that, but there's potential consequences.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of unknowns currently. So yesterday I did a quick literature review to make sure I wasn't missing anything in the field. And I had mentioned that there were industry papers showing that, and this kind of recapitulates what Stephen just said, you can, in some scenarios, the manufacturer can fluorinate a container and you can test that and you don't get PFAS in the fluid that it's holding. There is really well documented evidence in other scenarios where you do get PFAS in that fluid. And what we don't know is like the details in the middle on when it's most likely and when it's not. And there's really, so I kind of confirmed again yesterday that there's really no strong, consistent evidence that there's a pattern that we could say these pesticide containers are likely to be fluorinated or these ones were likely to contribute PFAS. Like there's just no knowledge there. But I think that EPA has approved one test method for PFAS in pesticides with an oily constitution. And with that method, people can start testing this in a rigorous kind of way.
There's also, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Representative Nelson.
Yeah, thank you. How do we know which containers contain PFAS or don't? Do all HDPE containers contain PFAS?
The short answer that'd be no, but it's really not whether the container contains PFAS. Is you know, the question is, do fluorinated containers result in one or more types of PFAS showing up in whatever happens to be in the container? And you know, like Pam just said, there's evidence it does for some materials and evidence it doesn't for other materials. The The other complicating factor here is the issue of the fluorinated container itself. It's apparently, and again, something we just haven't spent a lot of time looking at, it's a complicated technical process, and there's different levels of fluorination. There are different ways to do it. The one company that we have learned a little bit about, called Enhanced Technologies, which is apparently one of the larger manufacturers of fluorinated containers, and has a lot of technology that they use for a lot of different products, not just pesticides, but they do pesticides. They have published information saying that they are working on ways to reduce the chances for PFAS forming in their fluorinated containers. They've got different types of technology for fluorinated containers. It's not a simple one type of process. It's a complicated issue, is all I'm trying to say. And if you're considering doing this, it would probably be useful to have some testimony from the folks who are producing the fluorinated containers to understand how they're making them, what changes they're making in them, and to learn more about the process, so that we don't end up having a situation where we have a law that we have to comply with and we have to enforce that is not necessarily needed to accomplish what we want to accomplish, which is to remove PFAS. We don't want PFAS in pesticides. That's already something that the federal government is responsible for. And so adding this condition for registration in Vermont, there's just so many questions. It's hard it's hard to envision how it'll actually play out when it goes into effect. The other thing is, how do you know a container is fluorinated or not? You have to, the other states that are looking at, they're Minnesota and Maine, and they're looking at requiring affidavits from manufacturers, and they're running into issues of confidential business information and potential lawsuits from folks who want that confidential information and from folks who want to protect that confidential information. I actually had an opportunity to talk to my counterpart in Maine yesterday, and it's a headache for them. They're not quite sure how they're going to handle this at this point. So the question is, how do we know the container is fluorinated or not? That becomes an issue because the companies that are producing it are claiming that it's confidential business information.
Steve, to the point you made at the start, I think that the EPA already prohibits PFAS in pesticides, and noting that that's using the definition of PFAS that the EPA has chosen to use, which is a narrower definition than Vermont has used in the bill that we passed last year for fluorinated containers. But in any case, I guess my question is whether if there were some sort of chemical interaction between the pesticide and the chlorine in the container that resulted in PFAS being formed, would the EPA know that? I mean, is that what the EPA is preventing or doesn't allow, using its definition of PFAS? Or is it only looking at what goes in rather than what comes out?
There was one case where a PFAS, and I'm not sure which one it was, Pam may know which one it was found in a mosquito control product, and EPA verified it. EPA required the company to change their practices so that it was no longer in the product. I can't remember. Was it a malathion product, Pam? I can't remember.
I know the brand name was Anvil 1010.
Yeah. So anyway, it was a mosquito control product. They did document PFAS. They required corrective action. There's a process that EPA has for reporting adverse incidents. It's called the 682 process, FIFRA 682. And if a company became aware that there was PFAS in their product, they would have to report that to EPA, and then EPA would take action.
So in that case, I think if I understand correctly, the answer is yes, EPA is
Right.
is looking at what comes out of the container.
After being after being stored in the packaging, yes.
And I think, Pam, you did mention that case or that one instance when you were defining. Yeah.
And also, I should mention that there was a paper that was published a year or two ago that claimed to have PFAS in a whole range of products. EPA was not able to verify it, and then the author asked that the paper be withdrawn.
Were there questions? Yeah, John.
So it seems like if we went forward with this, it's that whole issue of fluorinated containers with pesticides. This is really only dealing with those fluorinated containers that certified applicators are using, because we're already doing a phase out to a ban on consumer products that would include, like, essentially, the things you can buy in a hardware store that are considered pesticides. Is that right?
My understanding, yeah.
So I just wonder, besides the potential issues of leaching in those, also compared to, say, Rep. Nelson being a certified applicator, or Rep. Burke having much stricter controls on what happens with that packaging once they use it. We're talking consumers here who are potentially just throwing these things out and they're ending up in Casella landfill somewhere. Is there danger in that the disposal is much more unregulated, I guess I could say, than what would happen with this specific legislation dealing with certified applicators?
Yeah, I'm not sure I can answer that question. I can say that there is a separate process for recycling agricultural pesticide containers that's been in place for 20 some odd years, and Vermont participates in it. And there are several tons of rinsed pesticide containers get taken out of the state every year and sent off for a special recycling process to result in, non-consumer end products like pallets and construction materials. So that does happen with those containers. Anyway, but the whole issue of fluorinated containers is not just, there are lots of products that come in fluorinated containers. There's reasons the containers are fluorinated to preserve the product, prevent leaking, allow different kinds of packaging. And it's just, again, it's a complicated issue which has a lot of potential unintended consequences. And the states that are wrestling with it right now are having a fair amount of problems with it.
I guess my question is, what happens to the PFAS in a deep container when it's thrown out and ends up in a landfill? Does it eventually leach into water?
Okay, from the disposal process.
Yeah.
So if PFAS formed in the material that was stored in the container, it's not that the container has PFAS in it, it's whatever happens to be in it. PFAS forms and some amount of it stays in the container, then whatever the environmental fate is of that PFAS would be what happens. And whatever happens in the landfill, if it's properly managed, there are going to be a lot of materials in that landfill that could potentially contain PFAS residues.
I think that it's an interesting question with the consumer products, and I've been trying to figure out what pesticides we consider consumer products, right? Because I think the deep container is an interesting one. Another one that came to mind just to think about, and it kind of plays on what Stephen just said, is we have registered bleach products, and there are also bleach products for whitening and cleaning that are not registered pesticides. So they're probably in the same fluorinated container. One has a label that makes it a registered pesticide. One has a label that makes it a consumer product. And it's that overlap, right? Like there, and I don't want to say like there are a lot of consumer products that meet this, but, and then what are the other pesticide products? A lot of the ones that we would allow for consumer use are not necessarily in HDPE. They're like in paper bags, or they're in like aerosol cans. So I think it's actually a really interesting question because we feel like there's in agricultural HDPE waste a pathway for that recycling to be contained. But I haven't sat down to think about all the different consumer products that would fit in the pesticide category.
Yeah, and one other thing I'd like to mention quickly too is I'm aware that I don't know if the committee has heard from Matt Chapman, who's I don't know the exact title, but he handles or manages the solid waste program over at DEC.
We did hear from Matt, yeah.
Okay. Well, he just let me know yesterday that there is language he's proposing regarding unavoidable use in another committee. So there's that complicating factor too. Different language.
Yeah.
Different.
Matt Chapman with he was one of the first witnesses we had. He's with ANR with DEC and deals with well water, drinking water, and waste water. But yeah, and thank you for mentioning that, Steve. And I gather you're aware that the language we're now looking at also has the unavoidable use language, and that we heard testimony earlier in the week that the version of that bill that we passed last year in the House, I'd forgotten this, originally included that unavoidable use language for consumer products.
I haven't been following that.
Yeah, we got a couple more questions, Representative Nelson.
Yeah, a couple questions. So when I think pesticides and the whole realm of economic poisons, and it's not just herbicides, but Deep Woods Off, and that little plastic spritzer thing, that could be, we don't, well, it's not supposed to be, it's not supposed to be leaching into the product. Gas cans. Of course, they're not cans anymore, they're gas jugs. The red jugs, the yellow jugs for kerosene, blue jugs for water. Would those be fluorinated? Do we know, or any guess? And
idea.
Did you ask me?
Well, yeah, I don't know. You might be aware. Yeah.
They were specifically obvious in some of the lawsuit paperwork for when EPA was trying to pursue against Enhance. So we know gas cans, like any oil container for either human consumption or motor oil fluids. I don't have the full list of what is fluorinated and what's not fluorinated in here. I apologize.
Yeah, and that particular company, Enhance, may be worth talking to and get testimony from. Find out what the universe of products is and what their processes are.
Representative
Chairman, I'll ask you the question. My question has to do with consumer.
Okay,
that's the question.
You can ask.
All right, this has to do with human health. And when I was brushing my teeth at 5:45 this morning, it just occurred to me how slippery that paste came out of the tube. Is there any chance that toothpaste tubes are fluorinated so that product, in the end of the day, will be empty? And that obviously goes into at least into your mouth and gets rubbed around your.
There's as part of the consumer products ban, one of the things that I suggested was added was dental floss. So it's not toothpaste tubes, but it's adjacent. And if it's frictionless in your life, it's probably fluorinated. basically. And so there's like hernia meshes, pacemaker parts, like there's a lot of internal medical devices that have a PFAS structure to them. So I don't know is the right answer. I don't know if the toothpaste tube is fluorinated, but it could be.
Thank you.
I got enough mesh in me to make a window screen for that.
I got a pair of matches.
All right, I think we can wrap it up there then. Thank you for coming back, both of you.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. I apologize for not being able to spend more time or to be there in person.
Oh, no, not at all.
Thank you both.
Thank you. Big help.
All right, thank you.
So let's stay online here just for the time we have between now and 12. I think there are at least 3 outstanding issues on 323. One is this question, and we can have a quick discussion on that. One is the CAFO stakeholder study language, after hearing the testimony there. And then there is the seed language, which we looked at. There's a question about possibly adding some other language back in there. And we don't have the time now to look at that. So we won't be taking a vote, just to cut to the chase here at 12 o'clock. I think if the floor goes past 4, again, we probably won't meet, but let's see where we are.
Betsy predicts 4.5 hours.
Yeah, and sometimes she's wrong, but usually she's right.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yesterday it was 2.5, she predicted, so if
Yeah.
we use that multiplier, we're gonna be here
Or
until
maybe we'll
July.
gain that
anyway.
time.
We're talking through.
Let's go to positive 5 for a break.
So anyway, those are the 3 things, John.
No, just a comment on PFAS. I don't know if anybody heard the report this morning that in Northwest Georgia, due to, I guess, rug making factories, their water is completely contaminated with PFAS. That's just interesting how so many industries.
Yeah.
And that goes back to Dr. Breyer's comments that there's so many heavier lifts and, upholstery, rugs, Teflon, and I can appreciate where the chair is coming from, that's coming from where he's from, down in Bennington County, and the issues.
The original problem in Bennington was making like the roof for the Astrodome or one of those. Yeah. John.
Yeah, so I have a request from Kate McCann and her husband to sort of hold the committee and get a sense. Like I know for me, if the session goes 4.5 hours, that's going to put us at 5:30. And for me, that's too late to go over there. I have another plan that's following right after that. So I can't do it if we go that long.
It's a field trip. Yeah.
Right. So the question I actually posed to her was, what about if we came tomorrow? Because we're actually not scheduled in the afternoon at all. So I don't know how you guys feel, but like for me,
I'm driving.
tomorrow you are? Okay, so tomorrow, okay, so it might just be that I won't go today.
Well,
and
yeah.
You guys
Do
will.
it next week.
Today is probably going to be a challenge, but maybe next week. Yeah.
Next week,
Be a little-
and for me,
Yeah.
I need
All right,
to
so
start making
should I tell her we
dots.
don't want to do it today, or
Yeah.
or do you want to
No,
hold
I
that? I mean, because
think
honestly,
it is.
to me, it sounds not very likely. to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would
Unfortunately,
propose next week.
Yes.
Does anybody have huge I mean, should I just say next week, or should we have a date?
Next week.
Okay,
Let's get back to the PFAS question.
okay, sorry.
No, that's all right. That's important too. So, Greg.
I think for me, Chair, I'm kind of looking at I feel like I need to make a chart for myself, whether it's on paper or in my mind, of direct consequences, potential or unintended consequences, and then kind of divide that up between what we know could come out of this and what we don't know. So I feel like I'm gonna create that for myself, but I feel like that's an important part of this question that we got in front of us.
Yep.
I feel like there are some things we can know that come out of a complete ban. And there are things that we don't know. And we have to weigh that, obviously.
For me on fluorinated containers, I think there's too much we don't know yet. And perhaps this is something to start in January and get a good dig into it and have enhanced technologies come in and talk to us. I've heard that my containers do have it, my containers don't have it. And of course, the unintended, the provision is great, but I think if we're looking at it going out to 2032 anyways, there's no sense to rush it today.
There's time.
There's time. And
Representative Brigham, I see
I
you
think
nodding your head.
Yeah, I agree with that. And sounds like Maine's starting to mess and we got that much time. We get lots of testimony on the back end now that maybe we should have got on the front end.
Yeah, I've heard that too. Representative Lipsky.
What Steve Grinnell mentioned about he would recommend that some of these packaging producers, we should get some of them in to testify.
Yeah.
Which the notion of this is clearly important and it's so discouraging that there's nothing that isn't attacking our health. I think doing a really complete or like everything we've tackled here, David, years have been with you. You really get a full spectrum of testimony. I think this deserves that depth of.
Yeah, that seems like an important missing piece.
Thank you.
Anybody have any other thoughts? Currently different or? John?
Didn't we hear that PFAS, was it PFAS or something else? Was both an active ingredient in pesticides and an inert ingredient in pesticides. It's also in the containers. So all those three, because it was leaching.
That it may depend on the definition of PFAS.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
And where it's used, so potentially strawberries in Mexico could have.
Well, there's that too. But the EPA uses a definition that is
more limited,
considerably more limited than the EU's definition and Vermont's definition. Vermont's definition in what we have is the EU's, as opposed to this.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be interesting just going forward, right? What we've talked about is you were looking at that list of, or maybe it was from Dr. Breyer, of where we're exposed to PFAS.
Yes, I think that's a good point. Yep. She showed us the chart that, and it pointed out, I think, that the rug factory.
Right, exactly.
Like Cortex factory, the roofing factory.
Like where in our Vermonter lives could, if it may be out of our jurisdiction for this committee to begin with. I mean, we're sort of dealing with what's here agriculturally, but I have no idea.
And things like toothpaste that were in dental floss that we put directly in our mouths.
And don't ever say it goes to Casella somewhere. You know damn well where it goes, right across from my house.
Yeah. Let me just see what
Richard's small backyard.
Okay, so I'm sensing that we are not coalescing around including that part in the amendment.
Yeah.
Okay.
But don't throw it away. I plan on being here next year.
And the Senate may be doing something as we heard, so we'll not worry about that. The CAFO stakeholder language. Anybody, so let me frame the question this way. We have language. We looked at it quickly today. does anyone have concerns about the language or what's proposed there?
Yeah,
We had a date question, at December 1st, 2026. Yeah, we can push that forward.
yeah, we can push that forward to,
Or back into 2027.
yeah, push it forward to February or March 1st.
Okay.
And that may give us time to assure them we have some funding.
I think March 1st makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And on the request they had for personnel to be part of the process.
Committee discussion here.
Yeah,
What are your thoughts?
when we had the stakeholder group and someone would bring up a criticism of one agency or the other, all of a sudden the conversation was justifying their existence and counter justifying their existence. And conversation stopped. We're of mind with the stakeholders that we go into these meetings and have frank discussion from both sides on both agencies without losing the conversation to justifying their existences. So that's kind of the way we want them there to hear. We want them there to answer questions. And this we could change. We could decide as stakeholders that we want more involvement for them. But for now, I think the stakeholders want to drive the conversation. And I believe that's how it happens in New York. I'm not sure.
All right, anybody have a different perspective?
That's a different perspective, clarifying questions, so. I don't have enough input to give on this situation. You have most of the information, Richard, but are you saying that we want to keep that language in there then for the third party?
What's that? Yes, yes. Oh, yeah, the third party's gotta stay. It's gotta stay, whether it starts now or later, it's gotta stay. That's a definite 100% unanimous of all the stakeholders.
Yeah, and I think the agency, or we heard from the commissioner that they were all in favor of that. It's just a question of how would it be paid for. So yeah, I think we've got a reasonably good solution in the language now.
Yeah.
Jack.
What Richard mentioned earlier, I don't know of too many farmers, mid-sized, large, that have any trust in what's come from that agency. So I would keep the third party, try to, so they can build a different attitude, both sides. In my own experience, I was never too excited about this whole thing.
John?
Richard, do you recommend keeping the 300,000 placeholder number, or is there a way to wordsmith it to have dollars support this?
I think 300,000 is a lot of money.
Yeah, it sounds like.
I think it could be half that, and maybe a third of the 300,000. But what do they do if they don't use the money? All of it. Is that part of what the BAA is?
If they don't use it, it can roll over. It gets a little complicated in the budgeting process, but
I can tell you what happens in the school board.
yeah, well, that's Also complicated, yeah. I'd say maybe we stick with that number. I don't think it matters all that much.
Right,
Yeah.
because appropriations is gonna. So. And we have the other clarifying language below it, so, and changing the date to March 1st.
And, all right, we should break. We are on the floor at 1, and just a little pitch for being there on time if you want to hear the State House Singers.
Oh, we do.
And our latest, whatever it is that we're doing.
Oh, we did at least on.